It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready. I'm confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel.
They referred to him as a kingmaker, a music mogul, and the ultimate hip-hop success story. But yesterday, when Cassie Ventura took the stand in court, that meticulously constructed image fell apart in front of our eyes. His ex-girlfriend described events so upsetting that even the most seasoned courtroom reporters were astounded. The man who once ran an empire lost control of his emotions as Cassie revealed everything about what allegedly transpired behind closed doors.
Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. He said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on, to the lighting in the room, to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
For decades, Sean Diddy Combs walked through the music industry like he owned it because, in many ways, he did. He built Bad Boy Records from scratch, turned unknown artists into global superstars, and expanded his empire into fashion, vodka, and media, becoming the poster child for hip-hop success. To the public, Diddy was a business genius, a visionary with sharp suits, a polished smile, and perfect soundbites. But according to recent courtroom revelations, that carefully curated image was masking a far darker reality. While magazines celebrated his business acumen and fans cheered his performances, Cassie Ventura was allegedly living through a nightmare few could have imagined. On the second day of court, Diddy arrived exuding his usual confidence, surrounded by lawyers, nodding, even smiling. But that facade crumbled within 30 minutes of Cassie's testimony. Witnesses described how his swagger evaporated, his composure cracked, and his focus unraveled. He fidgeted with his tie, then his cufflinks, then his hands, anything to stay grounded. He began furiously scribbling notes and passing them to his legal team. So much so that one attorney had to raise a hand to slow him down. Court observers said it looked like a man realizing, for the first time, that he was no longer in control of the narrative. His face reportedly drained of color, and at times, he closed his eyes as if he couldn't bear to listen. As Cassie calmly recounted deeply personal moments from their relationship, the power dynamic flipped. And this was just the beginning. Because what followed would not only shake the courtroom but threaten to dismantle the billion-dollar legacy Diddy spent his life building. The man who once controlled every frame of his public image was finally facing a version of the story he couldn't rewrite.
She actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-off? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse, in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically described being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-off that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-off in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently, it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the
When Cassie Ventura took the stand, the courtroom fell into a silence so intense you could hear a pin drop. Everyone had been anticipating her testimony, but no one, not even Diddy's high-powered legal team, was prepared for the emotional and explosive truth she was about to reveal. After years of silence, Cassie finally had the floor, and she began, not with drama, but with calm, deliberate words. She spoke of meeting Diddy at just 19, while he was already a powerful, wealthy figure in the music industry. The imbalance was clear from the start, and according to her, Diddy used that imbalance to his full advantage. Her story unfolded like a psychological thriller, small details that hinted at something far more sinister. She described how he allegedly demanded to know her every move, would appear unannounced when she was out, and slowly began isolating her from her friends. Then came the professional control claims that he threatened to shelve her music or sabotage her collaborations if she didn't obey. But what truly stunned the courtroom was her accusation that Diddy had installed tracking software on her phone, allegedly monitoring her location in real time. She described how, one by one, her support system was erased until only Diddy remained. The judge had to call for order 3 times as Diddy visibly reacted, shaking his head, whispering angrily to his lawyers, and making expressions the jury couldn't ignore. But then came the turning point. Cassie handed her phone to her attorney, and the courtroom watched as messages and emails were projected onto a screen. They reportedly included apologies from Diddy for violent outbursts and threats to destroy her career if she spoke out, messages that directly contradicted years of public denials. But that was only the beginning. Cassie soon described physical assaults throughout their relationship, detailing moments when she was thrown against walls, pushed downstairs, and choked until she nearly passed out. Jurors were visibly shaken. One woman wiped away tears, while a male juror couldn't bring himself to look at Diddy. Even veteran reporters admitted they weren't prepared for the raw, unfiltered truth in her testimony. And all of this, every painful detail, was merely the lead-up to the hotel incident. The moment that would detonate this case and threaten to collapse the empire Diddy had spent decades building.
With Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm gonna be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of this?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she said, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos, people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him.
I thought I was going to die that night, Cassie whispered, her voice barely audible as the courtroom leaned in to catch every word. She was recounting a harrowing, never-before-heard incident at the Four Seasons Hotel, an event so deeply buried that not even gossip blogs had caught wind of it. Cassie explained she had kept it secret for years, gripped by fear for her safety, her career, and the belief that no one would side with her against someone as powerful as Diddy. But on the witness stand, she was done holding back. What began as a routine after-party turned into a nightmare. She testified after Diddy saw her speaking with another music executive. She described how his smile vanished, how he grabbed her arms hard enough to leave bruises, and how he whispered threats into her IRO while keeping up his charming public image in front of others. Then came the most shocking detail. Cassie claimed Diddy dragged her through the hotel lobby as she cried and resisted, prompting hotel security to step in only to back off when they recognized him. He didn't even ask if I was okay, she told the court. The room went still as her lawyer introduced a set of raw, unfiltered photos Cassie had taken the next morning. Bruises, a split lip, and red marks around her neck clearly snapped in a bathroom mirror. And all the more disturbing, for their unpolished truth, Diddy's legal team scrambled to block the images, arguing technicalities. But the judge overruled every objection, and the photos appeared on courtroom screens. The jury's reaction was immediate. One female juror covered her mouth in shock. 2 male jurors turned their heads away, and another juror wrote notes with trembling hands. This was the bombshell no one saw coming, and Diddy's team had no defense ready. Cassie continued, alleging Diddy had thrown a champagne bottle at her, missing by inches, and went on a violent rampage, smashing a lamp, flipping a table, punching a hole in the bathroom door. Most disturbingly, she claimed he held her in that room for over 48 hours, taking her phone and threatening her if she tried to call for help. As this part of the testimony ended, all eyes turned to Diddy. His expression, captured in that moment, may very well become the defining image of this entire trial and possibly the unraveling of his career.
Is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called friend, who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? They said, she said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today.
It was the moment no one in that courtroom would ever forget. Diddy, the man, known for building a billion-dollar empire on his cool, composed public image, completely unraveled in front of everyone. For decades, he'd perfected the persona, the smooth-talking businessman, the unshakable mogul who never let anyone see him sweat. But as Cassie's testimony reached its most devastating points, that carefully built mask began to crack and then shattered entirely. Court reporters, seasoned from covering hundreds of high-profile trials, said they'd never seen anything like it. Diddy visibly transformed from the confident titan who strutted into court that morning into someone cornered, fragile, and unraveling. With each new allegation, he seemed to physically shrink in his chair. His legal team scrambled behind him. One lawyer reportedly kept placing a calming hand on Diddy's arm, while another passed him a note that read "Stay calm" in all caps. But it didn't help. When Cassie began recounting an incident at Diddy's Hamptons home, he slammed his hand on the table so hard the sound echoed through the courtroom. The judge immediately paused proceedings and warned him, "Mr. Combs, if you can't control yourself, I will have you removed from this courtroom." For a moment, it looked like that might actually happen. Throughout Cassie's testimony, Diddy was seen shaking his head, mouthing, "That's not true," seemingly forgetting a jury was watching his every move. One courtroom observer described it as watching a man who had never been publicly challenged realize, for the first time, he couldn't control the narrative. The power shift was seismic. Diddy, who allegedly once dictated every part of Cassie's life, was now powerless to stop her from speaking. He couldn't mute her mic, couldn't call security, couldn't spin it in the media. He could only sit there as she told her story. But the real breaking point came when Cassie testified that Diddy had threatened her family if she ever spoke out. Then came the true bombshell. She had recordings, actual audio of Diddy making those threats. When her lawyer played them in court, Diddy erupted. He stood up and shouted directly at Cassie, "You know that's not how it happened." His legal team rushed to restrain him. It reportedly took 3 attorneys to pull him back as he continued shouting over the audio. The judge immediately called a recess, but the damage was done. Everyone, jury, reporters, court officials, had just witnessed the fall of a man who once seemed untouchable. As he was led out of the courtroom, he looked nothing like the mogul who had entered that morning. The mask was gone. And just when it seemed like the storm had passed, Cassie dropped the next bombshell. She had been quietly collecting evidence for years: text messages, emails, and photos, all backed up and secure, places Diddy couldn't access or erase. The courtroom went dead silent when she revealed she also had text messages from celebrities who had witnessed Diddy's behavior firsthand. These weren't nobodies, they were some of his closest friends and longtime business associates. Diddy's face reportedly turned ghostly as she listed names. His team immediately objected, calling the messages hearsay and inadmissible. But after a private review, the judge ruled them highly relevant and allowed them into evidence. That moment alone broke something in Diddy. He reportedly put his head in his hands, knowing what was about to unfold. One by one, damning messages appeared on courtroom screens. A major rapper texted Cassie after a Grammy after party. Okay, what I saw tonight wasn't right. You can stay at my place if you need to." A female pop star had written, "I've known him 15 years. I've never seen him act like that with anyone. This isn't normal. Please call me." But the most damaging came from a veteran producer who had worked with Diddy for decades, messages that confirmed, in real time, that the industry had seen what Cassie had lived through, and that Diddy could no longer hide behind power, wealth, or reputation.